Hey, what's going on, guys? Here's another recent completed project that I did as just another kind of like a side project thing that I didn't make a big deal out of doing any work in progress videos or anything like that for a couple reasons. Number one, because it was just like a side project that I just didn't really feel like making any videos about whilst I was working on it as a work in progress. And also because, as you can see here, I made a little sort of like vignette diorama sort of thing here. And it's my first time ever trying that, really, and I wasn't really sure what I was doing. Actually, I was just kind of winging it the entire time, and so I didn't really necessarily want to make a video out of it, because even if I make like a work in progress video, I didn't want anyone following in my footsteps, because my footsteps were very unknown along the way. And so it's basically very experimental, as in I didn't really know what I was doing and just kind of going for it. But I think it came out looking kind of like decent enough for a first attempt, but it's certainly not that good by any means. Now, the kits themselves I'm quite happy with. I think the kits came out looking pretty nice. I did a little bit of weathering on them. Basically what I wanted to go for was like really super faint weathering on it, so it's just little bits here and there that you can see. And the idea behind that was actually just that I wanted it to look very in scale. If you imagine that these were actually gigantic, 18-meter robots in the battlefield, there would be a little bit of weathering on them that you would see, but not that much. And it's kind of taken from a conversation that I was having with a friend earlier in the year about this, and that, like, if you imagine a big massive robot like this is something that wouldn't be in the battlefield for that long, so they wouldn't be like super weathered. By the time that they were in the battlefield for that long to be that weathered, they would be cleaned or fixed or replaced parts or things like that. It would take a while for them to really get super damaged. So I wanted them to look like they've been in the battlefield, but not that long. And there's also a couple of parts on there that I didn't weather at all. So like the equipment, like the bazooka for the Gouf, and like its kind of big arm there. The arm, I wanted those parts to look brand new. So it's got like an experimental kind of new arm piece on there, and holding the bazooka, which is maybe a new equipment for the Gouf. So I'll get into that some more, talking about some kind of ideas behind the whole concept. But kind of what sparked me working on these kits at all was because the Facebook group Gundam Builders America was having a contest using HG The Origin kits, and I love HG The Origin kits, and I wanted to paint one. So far I've only painted the HG The Origin Gundam, and so I wanted to paint a couple of Zeon ones here. So what I did was just pick a couple that I thought would be cool to mix and match, so these are actually kind of kitbash between each other. Between the Prototype Gouf and the Waff, I swapped some pieces between them and also used some other pieces from some other Origin kits. So they're kind of custom kit bashes between the two of these, just using a mix of different parts and things like that. So I wanted them to look like just like a pair, a set, or like a team of Zeon mobile suits out in like some kind of arid area, not necessarily desert, but just maybe, I don't know, just like deserty kind of, anyway, not like a foresty region or something like that on Earth. And so that's why you can see there the diorama aspect, the ground, the dirt aspect. I didn't use any foliage because it was supposed to be desert, but I did want to use a little bit of water. So I wanted it to look just like sort of just like a battlefield where there had been some water, but it was still just a relatively dry area. And you can see there's like some little bits of sticks and roots and stuff in there. So it looked like maybe there had been maybe a few trees around the water there, but they've all just been destroyed just from it just being a battlefield. So that was kind of my thinking behind that, but it also covered for me not really having anything to use as far as like any foliage stuff. Now I know you can use like household items like parsley and things like that that you can use like for some foliage, but for this first attempt at doing anything like that, I just didn't want to go that far into it. I just wanted to stick with just some basic things, just some dirt and just little bits there to make it look like just kind of destroyed trees and stuff like that amongst the dirt and everything. So that was kind of the idea for the setting. But as for the kits themselves, I wanted to make them themed as, one, the Waff being a more close combat type mobile suit with the sword and the axes mounted there on its back, and then also the attachment that it's got on the left hand is from the Gouf, of course. That's for its heat rod, but what I tried to do, I modified that a little bit to look like it's a flamethrower, because I thought it'd be cool for it to be having a flamethrower as well too. Now I think what I could have, and I think it looks pretty convincing as a flamethrower, at least if you look at it, I guess, the right way. The thing that I think probably would have made it a bit more obvious is if I would have done a little bit more weathering on that, some kind of weathering around the tip of that to make it look like it's charred, like it had been burnt, like there had been flames shooting out of it. I think I probably could have done a little bit more weathering on that to make that look a little bit more convincing, but I wanted the Waff to look more like a close combat mobile suit and the Gouf to be its sort of partner for ranged combat. So it's got the kind of like the machine gun hand on it, and then it's got the bazooka there obviously as well too. So that was kind of the idea of these being a team, a pair to kind of go together for kind of alternating combat styles. Well, they've got matching color schemes there. That's just a desert type color schemes based off of the Gouf, actually the desert type Gouf. And also the markings. Most of the markings, well, I guess there's a mix. Some of the markings that I used for a lot of the little generic caution markings and stuff are all from a Vertex Poo's Modeling Workshop set of decals. It's very simple caution markings and stuff. And then most of like the lining bits and obviously the Zeon logos and stuff like that, that's from an actual Bandai set of water-slide decals that they make for the Waff, but the ones they make for the Gouf are pretty minimal. There's only like a few decals for that, so I only used a couple of those. So I basically end up splitting up the decals for the Waff. I end up kind of splitting between the two of them because some of the Waff parts, like the arms, especially the shoulders, from the Waff are there on the Gouf, so, and then the shield as well too. So I was kind of able to split the decals that are mostly for the Waff between the two kits, like that, and then just used a bunch more just caution, generic caution markings and stuff all on there. But so yeah, that was the idea behind the builds. And so like I said, the Gouf has like that kind of prototype arms, that's why it's painted in a different color, in that kind of dark red. The lighter green shoulder armor for the Waff also just meant to look like it's just taken from a different suit and then put on this, so it's sort of meant to give it a kind of real world, kind of like there is a reason for it being a different color or something on there, or why it's a different style from the spiked shoulder armor that it has. So like maybe originally it had two spiked shoulder armors, but the one got damaged and then just replaced with that just kind of generic Zaku 1 shoulder armor, because that's maybe all that they had or something like that. So there is kind of a thought process behind the modifications and stuff that I made to the kit. As far as the weathering that I did on them, obviously there's just a little bit of chipping on there in some areas. Also did some filtering around on there I used like a light sandy brown kind of color for some filtering because they're going to be in a sandy environment. That seemed to kind of make sense. And I did use some Mr. Weathering color as well too to get a little bit of streaking in some parts. And again, I tried to keep in mind the scale, or if you're thinking that this is a massive robot, I mean, it wouldn't have these huge like 2-3 meter long streaks all the way down, you know, the leg of the kit or something. It would just have a little bit in some certain areas, so you can just see a little bit of streaking around in some bits. And hopefully you guys can see this close enough. It's the kind of thing that I think is probably better to show off in photographs. In video, I don't know how well you guys are going to be able to see that, but anyway, it's all just kind of very faint and meant to be as best as I could, you know, with my very, very limited and not very good weathering experience. I'm still very much a beginner when it comes to weathering, but, you know, every so often I like to try it out a little bit, you know, and see what I can do with that, kind of slowly trying to make some improvements in my weathering, but I think I'm getting a little bit better anyway. But so the kits themselves, I'm really happy with how they turned out. I think they look really cool. If I wouldn't have done any sort of like actual dirt diorama or something like that, just had them just on like a normal wood block or something, kind of my normal style base, I would have been perfectly happy with them. But like I said, I wanted to try something new, and so I made that diorama bit in there. Basically all I did was, I did put a little bit of clay down first to give a little bit of difference in height, but it ended up kind of getting lost, so you can't really see it too much, except for like back in the back corner you can see like the elevation is slightly higher there, a little bit kind of built up, and that's kind of where I put like most of like the tree parts, because I guess I was thinking like it's a little bit higher ground there, so that's maybe where some trees were growing a little bit. And I just used glue, just like glue mixed with water, just to lay down on there, and then just laying a bunch of rocks and dirt on there, over maybe 3.5, 4 kind of layers of that, laying a bunch of stuff down and like blowing it off, and laying a big layer of like just very fine dirt on there, and then going back and laying some more larger rocks on there, and then going back and laying some more fine dirt over the top of that, so it looks like the larger rocks are actually set in there. So kind of did my best going back and forth with that, building that up. And then the water, unfortunately, it fogged up a little bit, and I'm not really sure why. It's something that maybe one of you guys can answer for me, I'm sure. What I used for that is some Vallejo water texture acrylic. It's just like the small tube, so it's not resin or anything. You just pour it in there, and you can only pour a little bit so much at a time, so I did 2 layers of that, because the first one, you know, it levels out and it's not very thick. It's only like a millimeter or a millimeter and a half for 2 maybe maximum thickness that you can get at a time. So if you want to build it up to any depth at all, you need to do multiple layers. So I did 2 layers of that to get just a little bit of water there, so it doesn't look like they're standing in like a big lake or anything like that, but just a little bit of like standing water there on the ground. Also, in between layers of dirt too, I should say, I also sprayed the dirt with the top coat just to kind of seal it on there a little bit as well too. And then did also paint with some enamel paints on there, just kind of some really thin enamel paints, just kind of did a wash on there to get some color variation. So made it darker towards the water and then lighter in the areas away from the water anyway, so it looks like the dirt was wet near the water, obviously, like that. And so that aspect kind of worked very well enough, I think, to give it some nice color variation there on the dirt, I think. But again, like I said, it's all just kind of very amateurish at the moment, so I'm still learning, still just getting used to that. And honestly, it's not something that I'm really that interested in developing. You know, doing dioramas is cool, and I think it's a good ability to have in your skill set, surely, but I don't see myself doing it that much very often. It's just not something that I'm super interested in my modeling life. I like building the kits and everything like that, but like dioramas and stuff, I don't see it being something that I spend a lot of time on in the future. But every now and then, I'm sure doing something like this will be fun to do, where it's just sort of more just like a really simple vignette, basically nothing really too crazy as far as dioramas go. So I'm sorry I didn't record that process and turn it into a work in progress video to share with you guys. Like I said, I was just kind of winging it though, so I didn't really know what I was doing and just kind of fumbling around with it, so I didn't really think it would make for good video content. But next time, you know, after I've got this learning experience, the next time I try to do something like this, I'll definitely record that and share the process with you guys to kind of show you what I'm doing, and hopefully that time I'll have a little bit more knowledge as to what I'm doing as well too. The other cool thing that I did like about the base, the diorama, and all the dirt and everything, I do like how the mobile suits do look pretty convincingly actually in the dirt. That was one thing that I definitely wanted to accomplish with this. That was like my main goal really with that, was to make the mobile suits look like the feet are actually in the dirt, because I see so many dioramas and stuff where people build and they set the kit on there and it looks like the kit is set on top of a diorama, like the feet are just on the ground, not actually in the ground. If you imagine this is a giant robot, its feet would be certainly at least sinking into the ground a little bit. It's super massively heavy. I forget how much these mobile suits like generally weigh, but tons and tons. So, you know, they would definitely be sinking in the ground a little bit, and especially areas where there's some standing water, obviously the dirt would be a little bit softer. So I think the feet in the ground look pretty good. I think that's one of the things that I think came out at least halfway decent about this. But of course, let me know your guys' thoughts. I'm sure there's plenty of you guys watching who have a lot more experience in diorama building and stuff than I do, and you'll have plenty of insight for me. So greatly appreciate your guys' feedback and thoughts. You know, what do you think that I did manage to do partially well, and what are some of the things that you guys think that I could definitely work on for future builds like this? I'm definitely looking forward to getting some feedback from you guys and talking with you. If any of you guys you know, if you're more experienced in this kind of stuff and you want to give me more feedback and more advice about that, hit me up in the messages or something like that on my Facebook page or Instagram or whatever, if you want to talk more about it in depth, more than just what kind of YouTube comment section would allow, really. So definitely hit me up if you're interested in talking more about that. I would really appreciate any advice from those of you guys who are a bit more experienced in this aspect of modeling. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for checking out the video, and wish me luck in the contest. I guess at the moment I don't know how the results are going to turn out, as I'm just about to send in my final photographs for this, and so, you know, hopefully I'll win something, but if not, that's fine. It was just an opportunity for me to paint up some Origin kits. That was really kind of the thing that I was looking forward to most, was to, like I said, I really like these kits, I enjoy them a lot, so it's a good excuse for me to paint a couple of them up and have some fun with these and try out something new. So that's the joy for me, just the joy of building it. So, you know, if I win something, that's cool too. Anyway, alright guys, that's it for today. I hope you're all having a great day as well too, enjoying some modeling, building yourself, you know, trying something new yourself. It's always good to do. So let me know your thoughts down below, guys, and thank you so much for all of your support. I'll see you guys soon. Have a great day. Bye, guys.